Sail trim, in its simplest form, is really quite understandable. In its nuanced form, might take a degree in fluid dynamics to truly grasp. And it starts with sails that fit, sails that are shaped well, and the tools that you have aboard to trim them properly. When we trim our sails, we usually start at the forward end of the boat. So we're going to start with our jib or genoa. Head sails are those sails flown forward of the mast in the portion of the boat that we refer to as the fore triangle. The fore triangle is bounded by mast, foredeck, and headstay, and our sails that are flown in that area are usually expressed relative to their size and the fore triangle size. So without getting too complicated about various types of sails, let's just say that a sail whose square footage is smaller than 100% of the fore triangle we refer to as a jib. A sail whose square footage is larger than the fore triangle we refer to as a genoa. Regardless of its size, however, it will be trimmed similarly depending on the point of sail and the amount of wind. Again, we have the luff, the leading edge that may be hanked on or fits into a furler. We have the leech, which is the trailing edge, and the foot, that is the bottom edge. The tack of our head sail, if it's on a roller furler, would go either directly into the tack shackle of our roller furling drum, or again, we might have a short pennant on it to make certain that the foot of the sail clears the lifelines. The head of our genoa will go into the roller furling swivel and be hoisted aloft. So whether or not the head sail is hanked on or roller furling, the trim tools that we have for the sails are the same. When we look at sail trim, we really only, for our genoa, generally have two trim tools. One is the halyard that hoists the sail aloft, but also, when it hoists it aloft, tensions the leading edge of the sail. The other are the sheets, and the sheets tension both the foot and the leech. So sail trim in its elemental form basically is putting tension on the three sides to achieve the shape that you're after. So again, the halyard will hoist the sail, but it will also tension the luff. And the greater tension we have on the luff, the further the draft moves forward. The greater tension that we have on the leech, which we achieve by moving the sheet lead forward, the more the fullness of the sail is pulled aft. And the bottom of the sail becomes very full. So how do we decide where that sheet goes and how much luff tension to have? That's part of wind speed and point of sail. The third factor in this is something called headstay sag. And when our headstay sags aft and to leeward, which unless we've got an I-beam up there, as soon as our sail fills with wind, our headstay will sag at least an inch for every 10 feet. So if we have a 40-foot headstay, we're going to have at least 4 inches of headstay sag. Could be easily twice that on a vessel with a bowsprit or without a standing backstay, such as a gaff rig boat. And that stay sag actually increases fullness in the sail. So there are things that some vessels have in the form of adjustable backstays where they can tension the backstay, which in turn will straighten the headstay and make our head sail a little flatter. For those of us who don't have an adjustable backstay, which by the way is not a necessity, we're going to be dealing with halyards and sheets. So we're going to want an airfoil shape that looks, if this is our headstay, like that in moderate winds or when it's blowing, say, anywhere from 15 to 30 knots, and we're going to weather. So that's close hauled. We're now beating. Close hauled is again, when we've got our sails trimmed in as tightly as possible to the rig to go as close to the wind as possible. It's synonymous with beating to weather, slogging to windward. It sometimes means we're wet and cold, but when we're going to weather, we want the camber or fullness to be at the forward end of the sail, say 35% if we were to draw that cord from luff to leech, and we want the back end of the sail, the leech, to be open. The reason is we're trying to get airflow to stay attached to this sail as we're moving forward, and that's what's going to generate the lift. If our sail, when we're going to weather in a good amount of wind, looks like this, because we don't have enough luff tension, the fullness, or because our sheet lead is too far forward, the fullness in our sail will move aft. And this is the equivalent of sailing with the flaps down on our airplane. So what happens now is when this high-speed wind, say relatively high-speed wind, 20 to 35 knots, gets to this hairpin curve, as the wind might read it, it's just going to spin off into a tip vortice, or into a vortice loss, and we actually won't be generating the lift we want. We'll be generating heeling and leeway. So the shape of the sail when we're beating wants to have draft forward and leech open. This, however, which would be bad if we're beating in heavy wind, this shape, might be ideal if the wind's at our back, so we're on a broad reach or a run, or in really light air when we're beating. We'll have a nice fine entry, and in light air, airflow can still stay attached. So we learn this really by doing. We see, as we shape our sail, how it's making our boat behave in these different wind speeds and in these different points of sail. So how would we achieve this shape? If we want to go to weather in a pretty good wind speed, we use our telltales to help us determine where our sheet lead should be. Our telltales can be yarns, they can be video cassette tape, there's a use for it still. It can be little pieces of spinnaker cloth, but we want them to be, say, 12 inches long or so at the quarter point, so midpoint, top quarter, and bottom quarter. We'll want telltales both port and starboard, and the translucency of our sail should enable us to see the leeward telltales. And they're going to tell us many things. They're going to tell us how air is flowing over our sail, but they're also going to tell us the optimal place to place our sheets. So most of our vessels are going to be fitted with a genoa track. And we have an adjustable car that can move a variety of places to control the tension on our leech and on our foot. And where we start when we're going to weather is an imaginary line from the midpoint of our sail through the clew to this track, which now I need to make a little bit longer. So how we know if we're in the right spot fore and aft is to intentionally round up into the wind and luff the sail. If our top telltale luffs first, it means that our sheet lead is too far aft, and it's pulling the foot nice and tight, keeping airflow going there, but there's not enough tension on the leech to actually allow that telltale to show us that wind is passing over us. So what that means is it's probably going to look something like this from behind, meaning we're pulling the foot tight, but the leech is too open. If we really are feeling overpowered and we want to bleed a little air off the back end of the sail, we can move our sheet lead aft and open up the head of the sail. But if we're really trying to keep our sail moving efficiently, we're going to want to move that sheet lead a little farther forward so that when we luff intentionally, all of our top and bottom telltales luff simultaneously. If the bottom telltale luffs first, it means that our sheet lead is too far forward. And what that's doing is pulling the leech nice and tight, but making this portion of the sail entirely too full, so it will luff first. So rather than trying to necessarily see exactly what's happening with your sail, know that the telltales are the early warning system. They're telling you how air is flowing over your sail. When you round up, if the bottom telltale luffs first, move the sheet lead aft. And the little mantra is bottom back. If the bottom telltale luffs first, move the sheet lead back. And you move the sheet lead into the position that enables you, when you round up into the sail, into the wind and intentionally luff, that all your telltales luff at the same time. Once we've got our sheet lead in the correct position, fore and aft, then we use the telltales to tell us how the wind is flowing. So ideally, when we're going along, we want both sides of the sails, the windward and leeward side of the sail, to have the telltales both flowing aft. If the telltale on the windward side is starting to luff, it means that we need to sheet in or bear away. If conversely, the telltale on the back side of the sail is luffing, it means that it's not getting any air, and we need to ease that sail or head up. So we use the telltales to guide ideal sheet position and to see how the air is flowing over the sail. One of the things that I do when I'm sailing into the slip is I know that I need to pinch as high as I can without coming about. So I keep my leeward telltale flying, and when my windward telltale starts to get above 45 degrees, I know I'm about to luff, and I might find myself in irons, that position where the bow of the boat is dead into the wind, and I might not be able to move in the direction I want to go. Using those telltales is the best way to understand how wind is flowing over the surface of your sail. Now, an interesting thing occurs when we ease our sheet. We've gotten around our weather mark, whatever that might be. We're going to ease the sheet, and as we ease the sheet, the clew of the sail both goes up and goes farther forward. And it turns out that if we leave our sheet lead in the same position, the trailing edge of our sail will have too much twist. So let's say the bottom of our sail is at right angles to the wind, where we want it to be when we're on a reach, and the top of our sail is oriented completely differently. The wind actually is hitting it in a manner that has the top part of the sail going to weather. So when we have too much twist, the top part of our sail is trying to round the boat up to weather, the bottom part of our sail is trying to sail downwind, and we're rocking back and forth with the tiller or the helm to keep the boat steady. Whereas if we pulled the sheet lead forward, we're going to eliminate that twist and have the whole sail working for us in the correct orientation. So now we're going to be looking at a sail where we're seeing a little bit of the backside of the sail, but not that exorbitant amount of twist. So that's something that we'll visually look at. We'll go forward, moving that sheet lead forward and looking to see that the trailing edge of our sail is following a nice little bit of openness at the top, but not a radical amount of openness. But the thing to remember is when we ease the sheet, the clew is going to go forward and the sheet lead should go forward as well. So that's your visual cue that you're going to follow the clew of your sail to get that sail trimmed properly. The other thing to remember is that when we partially furl a sail, so let's say we've got a roller furling genoa, and we're now going to reduce its size to, say, 30% smaller, so its new shape is going to look like this. The sheet lead that worked before now will be too far aft for our new partially furled sail. So when we partially furl a genoa, or when we ease the sheet, the clew of the sail moves forward. And when the clew of our head sail moves forward, so should our sheet lead. So once we have our telltales telling us that our sheet lead is in the correct position fore and aft, and the air is flowing over both sides of the sail as we wish, if we still have a shuddering in the trailing edge of our sail, in the leech, it doesn't mean that we're luffing, nor are we leeching. It means that we need to use that thin line in the trailing edge of the sail, called the leech line, and tension it to get rid of that fluttering. If we move the sheet lead forward to correct that fluttering, we'll have ruined the shape of the sail for that point of sail, and potentially actually overstretched the leech and permanently done damage. So the leech line is used to correct leech flutter after we've determined ideal position for the sheet lead. So we'll have a leech line that we can tension and cleat. Your sails are going to take care of you and move you in the direction you want to go with just elementally positioning them to the wind. Again, remembering, when in doubt, let it out. Let the sail just begin to luff and sheet it back in. And then you can work with the nuances of how to position that sheet lead and get the most out of your sail. Good sail trim has three really positive benefits. One is it will actually make your sail last longer because it's going to not be flogging and fluttering in ways that it's not meant to do. Two, it will make you sail more comfortably because you won't be heeling as much and your boat motion will be more predictable. And thirdly, you'll be sailing faster. And that is not just a thing that is a joy on the race course, but for those of us who are passage making or really would like to get from point A to point B in a timely fashion to meet a tide or to get there before dark, this enhances our capability of doing so.